Luffy's true dream was just revealed in chapter 1049. As a reminder, Luffy's true dream is not becoming Pirate King. This is something that was established in chapter 966, when we were shown this scene of Roger revealing some secret dream of his to Whitebeard and Odin, a scene that directly paralleled the earlier scene of young Luffy revealing some secret dream of his to Ace and Sabo. The implication is, of course, that Luffy and Roger are saying the same thing. They have the same secret dream that is garnering the same reaction, which means that Luffy's true dream was not becoming Pirate King, as Roger's true dream could not have been becoming Pirate King. After all, Pirate King was not even a title or a concept back when Roger proclaimed it, and no one at the time had any reason to believe that Roger would be called Pirate King if he sailed to the last island. Rather, that was just something people happened to end up calling him in the wake of that achievement. In fact, it seems like even Roger wasn't anticipating that title. As such, what Luffy and Roger were talking about here was something entirely different from Pirate King. And in chapter 1049, Luffy finally revealed what that true dream is, even if many readers may not have realized it just yet. Luffy's true dream is to create a world where no one has to go hungry, and more specifically, a world where everyone has as much as they need. A world without inequality. That is the dream at its core, and in fact for the last 500 chapters, Oda has been building to this reveal. And the entirety of this Versus 4 Emperor saga, and the Wano arc in particular, has actually been built around revealing this as the truth of Luffy's dream. So before we get into it, make sure to subscribe. And make sure you're not wasting your time going to the grocery store or cooking for hours. Instead, make your life efficient with HelloFresh, the sponsor for this video. HelloFresh delivers ingredients straight to your door so that you can easily cook delicious meals in less than 20 minutes. That means after a long day of work, you don't have to waste time planning out what you're gonna eat for the week, going to the grocery store, spending an hour or more every day preparing dinner. Everything you need for fast, tasty dinners is given straight to you, ready to go. Like these delicious buffalo spiced crispy chicken cutlets that I had for dinner yesterday. And not only does the food taste great, but you get excellent variety, with lots of different choices picked out for you that fit with whatever meal plan you select, like meat and veggies, fit and wholesome, family friendly, etc. And with summer rolling around, HelloFresh is definitely the best choice to make sure you get regular healthy meals that taste good and keep you in shape. So just go to HelloFresh.com and use code MrMorge16 to get up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. That's right, 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts, link in the description below. So that aside, to begin with, let me establish something. It might sound a little generic to say that Luffy's goal is to solve world hunger, but there's more to it than that. That's just what the simplistic idea is in Luffy's head. The full concept of what this means is more complex. Remember, Luffy is a simple thinker. In Luffy's mind, things like money, housing, etc., those are vague concepts. The only material thing that Luffy really values in this world is food. For him, being able to eat is the simple representation of having what you need or not having what you need. Having food or not having food, that is the basic lens through which he views the world. For instance, when we are initially being shown the land of Wano, we are shown a great range of problems. They don't have water, they don't have proper houses, the whole area is a wasteland, they don't have food. Basically, all of Kuri is a hellhole of poverty and suffering. But what Luffy is mainly going to hone in on and talk about is the food aspect. Not that everything else isn't important, it is stressed repeatedly that the drinking water is a problem, the money is a problem, etc. It's just that the nature of Luffy's character is such that he's naturally going to simplify the greater issue of poverty and suffering down to the way that he relates to it. Meaning, it's not that this whole arc is just about food and starvation, the bigger idea is the overall poverty and inequality, which Luffy happens to simplify down to the one thing that he can personally relate to, which is hunger. In reality, when Luffy is saying he wants to create a world where no one goes hungry, what is really being said is that he wants a world without inequality, a world where everything isn't concentrated in the hands of a select few, while everyone else suffers. It's just that in his words, he's going to be saying a world where no one is hungry. So, am I making too big of a leap here? No, let's start breaking down why this is the case. To begin with, framing matters a lot in storytelling, so let's look at when the author is choosing to include certain moments or reveals. To start with, the fact that Luffy has some secret dream was first revealed in the Goa Kingdom arc. That is where Oda first chose to hint that Luffy has some secret, true desire. The Goa Kingdom was pretty much Oda's ultimate depiction of inequality in the One Piece world. That was the defining characteristic that Oda focused on throughout that flashback. It is a land separated by those who have everything who live in the city, and those who are literal trash who exist on the outskirts. This disparity was the fundamental, deep-rooted evil that defined that land. And through Dragon, Oda alluded to the idea that this is the greater problem that afflicts the entire world. And it is also in Goa Kingdom that Oda first brings up that Luffy has some secret dream. Now at that time, we had no reason to believe that Luffy's true dream would have anything to do with the issues that plague Goa Kingdom. After all, Luffy was a simple child. It was hard to tell how much the problems of this land were really affecting him. Although one thing that of course deeply affected Luffy at that time was Sabo's death. And we did see Luffy being told through Dadan and Ace that essentially the nature of this nation, the Goa nation, and by extent the nature of the world at large, was what killed Sabo. But again, back then we had no reason to read too much into how much the state of the Goa nation was affecting Luffy, so we had no reason to think that Luffy was really internalizing all the poverty and famine and inequality of the Goa nation, and that any of this was shaping his dream. However, we did get a subtle reveal much later on in the story that Luffy had in fact been internalizing all of this as a child in the Goa Kingdom all along, when in Dressrosa, he talks about the type of world Doflamingo created, a world that is heaven for some, but hell for others, was just like the place where he grew up, the Goa Kingdom. And this is clearly something that stuck with him and upsets him to this day. So yes, from a young age, the things that Luffy was seeing and experiencing in Goa Kingdom were shaping his idea of right and wrong, and what the world should be like from the start. He could tell from a young age that a world where some have everything and everyone else suffers is the worst world imaginable. So Goa Kingdom, a nation that is highlighted by a single central area where the people have everything they could possibly want, whereas everyone else on the outskirts lives in poverty, in famine, and is treated like trash. In all of One Piece, there is one other nation that clearly mirrors Goa Kingdom, and that nation is Wano. That is what has been played up throughout all of Wano. Not just the extreme poverty, famine, suffering, etc., the mistreatment of the citizens, but the sharp contrast, the night and day between how everyone in the central flower capital lives versus how everyone on the outskirts of Wano lives. In the flower capital, no one ever wants for anything. As people starve and die in droves on the outside, the flower capital may as well be paradise. That is explicitly stated. And the phrasing here is very deliberate. The flower capital is heaven, the outside is hell. The visual juxtaposition is also very deliberate, Oda regularly cutting from inside the flower capital to outside to show the disparity. Not to mention, Wano is the only other nation that heavily emphasizes the class system, the same way Goa did. Wano is the Goa Kingdom all over again, and that is why it is no mistake that Goa Kingdom is the first time that Oda hinted at the same true dream of Luffy's. And now, 500 chapters later, in the Wano arc specifically, is when Oda chose to remind us again that there is some secret dream of Luffy's that is yet to be revealed. Because what has been Luffy's greatest issue throughout this Wano arc? What has made him angry over and over? What does he take the biggest issue with? It's the fact that there are children that do not have enough food, that there are people throughout this land that do not have enough to eat, and most importantly, it enrages him that there are some people that have everything they could possibly want, all the food, all the drink, while everyone else has nothing. That disparity between the haves and the have-nots is what makes him the most angry. In the Wano Kingdom, Luffy is finally vocalizing his problems with everything that he experienced as a child in the Goa Kingdom. So if this is what Luffy is saying right now, then yes, I believe it is the same thing that he was saying back then. As you can see, there's a lot of reason to believe that Luffy's true desire from childhood was to make a world where no one goes hungry. Again, keeping in mind that no one goes hungry is just shorthand Luffy thinking for no inequality, no unfair class system, no poverty, etc. It's just that food is the simple concept that makes sense for Luffy. What he really dislikes is the idea of the haves and the have-nots. So now look at the framing we've been getting throughout this Wano arc. Act 1 concludes with Luffy saying that he will make this a land where no one ever has to go hungry. Act 3 is concluding with Luffy saying that he will make this a world where no one ever has to go hungry. Similarly, Act 3 begins with Oda again referencing this mysterious true dream that Luffy and Roger have without revealing it. And Act 3 is now concluding with Luffy declaring this huge goal of his to change the world for the first time. Even beyond that, looking at the prologue of the Wano storyline, This whole storyline began with us focusing on wealth inequality, with the lead-up chapters right before Wano explaining the concept of celestial gold for the first time, and how the celestial dragons continually take gold from subordinate nations and hoard it for themselves at the center of the world, as well as explaining through the story of Whitebeard how there are many islands that fall into ruin and become impoverished hellholes when they are unable to pay the celestial gold. Again, the recurring idea of Goa Kingdom, a small central power having all the wealth as surrounding citizens suffer in poverty. That is reflected in the world at large as the celestial dragons hoard all the wealth as abandoned islands suffer in poverty, which is precisely why this aspect of the world was introduced to us right before the Wano arc, to pre-frame the reader for the story of Wano, where again a small central power has all the wealth as surrounding citizens suffer in poverty. All these ideas are meant to link together to help lead up to the logical reveal of Luffy's true dream. The problem of Goa is the problem of Wano is the problem of the world. And whereas Luffy was too small to do anything in Goa, he can do something in Wano. And when he's done with Wano, he's moving on to the rest of the world. That is all brilliantly thought out narrative framing. And not just that, this is the Versus 4 Emperors saga, right? Look at the framing of the Emperors throughout this saga. What have we been learning one by one for the Emperors so far? For each Emperor so far, Oda has been building up their character to finally reveal the type of world that they are trying to create, because it seems like every Emperor has a vision for the world that they're aiming to achieve. First, Big Mom. Her backstory revealed that she aims to create a world where everyone is equal. Though of course, her vision is a warped, childlike fantasy, believing that everyone will literally have to be the same size, and that everyone will have to be nice and kind to each other because she will simply force them to as the all-powerful queen. Second, Kaido. His backstory reveals that he wants to create a world that is essentially survival of the fittest. All-out war, where only the strongest can survive, which would essentially end the class system, but would also create, as he says, a world of violence. And finally, Luffy. He has finally revealed the type of world that he aims to create, a world where no one has to go hungry. And just like Big Mom's vision of a world of childlike equality was born from her past with Mother Carmel, and Kaido's vision of a world of violence was born from his past of war and bloodshed, so too is Luffy's vision of a world where no one has to go hungry, born from his past of witnessing poverty and inequality. And what's even more interesting is the similarities between their visions of the ideal world, as they all have a somewhat admirable goal. It's just that Kaido and Big Mom's is twisted in certain ways. They all believe in equality to some degree. Kaido hates the idea of a class system. Big Mom believes everyone should be equal and see eye to eye. But Kaido's solution to the class system is just to tear everything apart and revert things to a state of nature where strength is all that will matter. Big Mom's solution to creating an equal world is for her to be an absolute authoritarian ruler who will force everyone to play nice. And that's not even mentioning the weird gigantification aspect of it. Luffy's solution? Well, I don't know if he'll ever vocalize his solution, but his actions speak louder than words. And so far, it seems to simply be taking down people who keep everything for themselves and making sure everyone else gets to eat too. Note, there is more to be explored here as to whether Luffy really only cares about making a better world for just his friends, or if he wants everyone to be able to have as much as they need. Since, after all, historically Luffy only fights for those who fight for themselves, and also really only goes out of his way to fight for people he likes or considers friends. But in reality, we've seen throughout this arc that he will be a hero for everyone when it really comes down to it, and he is thinking of all the children of Wano being able to eat their fill, not just Tama. I also think certain other small ideas make sense, considering that Luffy and Roger likely had the same dream to create a world where there is no inequality, where there are no people who are left with nothing or who have to go hungry. Because if we look at Roger's words leading up to his true dream, his main focus is on the idea of a huge, extremely valuable treasure that will seemingly allow him to achieve his dream. Roger wouldn't be interested in a great wealth like that for no reason, but what if he's interested in the idea of a huge treasure because he could share it with the world? In his mind, that may be the answer to the inequality, poverty, hunger, etc. that so many suffer from. And finally, the simplest reason I believe that Oda may have finally revealed Luffy's true dream is that this entire arc, the Wano arc, has been largely centered around revealing the truth about Luffy in general. Prior to this arc, our understanding was simply that Luffy's role is to find the One Piece and achieve his dream of becoming Pirate King. But over the course of the Wano arc, we have learned that the true nature of Luffy's journey is much more than that. We've learned that Luffy's true role is more than Pirate King. It's to be Joy Boy. His true quest is not just to find the One Piece, but to ultimately bring the dawn of the world. His true fruit is not simply the rubber fruit, but that of the sun god. And finally, his true dream is not simply to become the freest man on the sea, but to create a world where no one goes hungry. I do believe everything points to Luffy having just revealed his true dream. And that makes sense looking at where we are in the story. Many believe this to be the penultimate saga of One Piece. After Wano concludes, we really are only one step away from the finale of the story. And so now is the best time to finally reveal everything we need to know about our hero, who he really is, and most importantly, what his true, deepest motivation is. So I do believe that with this, Oda is finally telling us that this is what Luffy really wants. Before the final conflict of One Piece begins, we need to understand that this is what Luffy is truly striving for. I think we will get more clarification on this at some point, to confirm that this really is what Luffy once said to Ace and Sabo, and what Roger once said to Whitebeard and Odin, but I do think Oda did just put the idea out into the open for the first time with Luffy's statement to Kaido, that this is the type of world he is striving to create. So all that being said, let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like and subscribe. And I'm also restarting my weekly Patreon podcast, so for extended thoughts on this and all future topics, join that, link in the description below.